can watch this again. Now we're going to have a lot of folks joining us over the next minute. We can just see them streaming in here. So again, make sure that your sound is turned up so that you can hear everything. And we will be recording this and sending out an email to everybody. Now, as far as the speaking, you might see that you are muted. That would allow you to talk to us live. Unfortunately, we have way too many people to allow that to happen today. So if you any questions you want to present to us, please type them in the questions panel. And I see it is just 1 o'clock. So excuse me. So let's get started. So today's webinar is sponsored by x-rite. Please visit x-ritephoto.com to see all of the color solutions they have available to photographers. My name is Joe Brady. I'm not presenting today. I'm just your host for a wonderful presentation on portrait retouching with Jane Conner-ziser. I will be moderating the questions. If there's any question I can answer for you as the presentation is going along, I will do so. And we will take some question breaks during the program so that Jane can answer some of your questions as well. And we are honored to have Jane Conner-ziser as our guest presenter today. Jane is a photographer, media artist, independent consultant, and teacher for the professional photography industry. With over 30 years of experience, and I've told her she must have started when she was 4, based on her picture here, and I have seen her in person. She does look this way.
3.
All right, she was 3. The techniques Jane has developed for facial retouching and enhancement and portrait painting are widely emulated by photographers and digital artists worldwide through her classes and numerous educational products. She participated in Canon's Explorer of Light Printmaster program, is an Adobe Photoshop expert, a Corel Painter Master, and a Craftsman photographer of the Professional Photographers of America. In addition, she is past co-chair for the Digital and Advanced Imaging Committee for the Professional Photographers of America. As we welcome Jane with us today, as with all of our presenters, many of us are curious about the tools that other photographers use. Now here we see a list of the primary toolbox that Jane uses to capture, edit, and print her beautiful images. We are honored that Jane has fit us into her busy schedule and welcome her here today. So let's get started. Good afternoon, Jane.
Awesome. Hi, how are you doing? Joe and everybody?
Everybody's great here.
Good.
All right, so I'm turning the screen over to you.
Okay, so I show my screen, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you can see it.
And there you go, we're live.
We're good to go. Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today for the portrait retouching segment. I thought what I would do to start off with here is just run through some basic portrait retouching tools on this beautiful model that Clay Blackmore and I created together, and a 30-minute portrait, believe it or not. And through this process, I can show you a couple of options that you have for retouching the face and basically how you approach the retouching. So the first thing you want to do is analyze the face. And we have a really beautiful girl here, and you can see that she's taken some time to put on some mascara on her eyes here. She doesn't have a lot of facial makeup on, no powder or anything like this. And as a result of that, you're going to be able to see like a lot of pore structure just in the specular highlight areas, just where the little shine is on the face. You won't see those pores repeated anywhere else on the skin. So, you know, this is an area that we'll address with maybe some soft focus down the way, but we're just going to be aware of it right now. But, you know, I'm kind of opposed to just blurring the whole skin. I'm just going to use a little soft focus where we need it. She also has a few little bits of dry skin that you can see over here. And then as we zoom out, we can see that she has picked up a bit of shine on the forehead that will tone down a little bit, and we're just going to give her a little fashion retouch here. So what I've done is I've opened the file. I will be working on a background copy here. This allows me to apply a lot of retouching and merge it down so I have all of the retouching on one layer. And yet, if I need to go back or back off a little bit on the retouching or erase or something, all of the original material is still going to be available to me right down here on the background, so I can cut and paste little pieces and bring them up if I make a really bad mistake. So the workspace setup for retouching is a little bit different than default. What I have here is a set of small retouching brushes, and you can see that the retouching brushes that I've set up actually have no shape dynamics, and they're actually created out of the default brushes in Photoshop CS5. I just kind of have taken one of them and just taken the shape dynamics off and created a series of size 1 all the way up to 500 in size. These are kind of industrial brushes, but it's real important when you're doing detailed work to know exactly where the edges of your brush are at all time. Plus, you do want to have a soft edge on it. So those are the brushes that I use the most often. And then once you get through these next set of brushes here would be the eyelash brushes, and they will have complete shape dynamics on them. The next brushes down will be a full fade brush. They are for tying hairs into the background. And here you can see all of the default brushes here in CS5, plus the new little bristle tip brushes that are also used for painting. So that's pretty much my setup for the brushes here. And it just, like I said, real simple, little simple brushes that we use just for retouching purposes. Let me just close this up a little bit here. The next thing is the color window. You want to choose to view your colors in hue, saturation, and brightness rather than the default RGB, because in retouching, oftentimes when you have a tool in your hand, you'll use the Option or Alt key to sample a color that's in the image here, and then once sampled, you may alter it by making it a little more or less saturated and lighter and darker, which you can do right here in the color window. And this little Option Alt Tap reminded me that we have a new color picker here in CS5 that's kind of neat for painting, but let's go into this little eyedropper tool here for right now, and we're not going to show the sampling ring, and we do want to show a 5x5 pixel average for our color sampler tool. Now when I do the Option or Alt Tap, I don't get that ring popping up in front of me, which is a little distracting once you start working on something that's fairly detailed.
Jane, a couple quick questions.
Yes.
Can I break in a second? Just a couple quick questions that would apply to everybody, so we might as well answer them. First of all, I did mention to everybody that you are using Photoshop 5.
Right.
If you would just let everybody know when you are doing something that is peculiar just to 5.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And also, are you using a tablet?
I am. I was just going to say that. I've got my little Intuos 4 sitting right here in my lap. In fact, I just got the new wireless one that I've been playing with, just brand new. But I love my Intuos 4, and I use it in my lap rather than beside me so that I don't get a kink in my shoulder trying to, work next to myself, and I can look straight on at hey, I can lay on the sofa and do this. So it's and if I didn't have this tablet, I would go do something else. Seriously, it is the difference between creating art with a pen and a potato. And
artwork and a potato, okay.
Yeah. So, if you are using a mouse, it will definitely cut your retouching time down in half just by switching over to the tablet. And then, other than that, it allows you to do things you simply can't do with a mouse. And everything that I'm doing here, pretty much, except for the things I'm going to show you that are just special for CS5, can be done in just about any version of Photoshop because they are all very simple techniques. Good.
Okay. Along with that, just 2 quick questions.
Okay.
First of all, one, how much time do you typically spend on a retouch?
Okay.
And then the second part of that, somebody specifically wanted to know what the shape dynamics do, and are the brushes you're using available for download anywhere?
Yeah. Okay. I can definitely send you a set of the brushes that you can put on your x-rite site if people want to come and access them. There, they can have them for free. I also include them on all my DVDs, and I'm trying to think if there's any other sites that are up there that have them now. But after the webinar, I'll send you a set of them. Is that okay, Joe? Would that work?
That'd be great. That would be great.
Okay, and generally, how much time you spend on a face really depends upon how big the head is and what the ultimate purpose for the portrait is going to be. You know, if I'm working on wedding prints, you know, I want to spend 30 seconds ahead, you know, and just do some really fast techniques on those, and maybe take a little bit of extra time on the primary people within the wedding, because I know there's most of those pictures are going to be very small. If it's going to be something big, this is a big head here, it's a big head. If it's going to be like a 30 by 40 or something like that, then we're going to spend some extra time on it. But the techniques, uh, I generally spend on a fine portrait maybe 15, 20 minutes on a face, including enhancements and any body work and stuff like that. So they actually work up pretty quickly. 5 minute a face for production.
All
Good?
right. Well, I don't want to interrupt your flow, so I'm going to mute off and
Off we go.
take it over.
All right.
Alrighty.
Well, the first thing we're going to do then is we're going to look at any particular spots that we want to remove on the face. And that would be like a little blemish or a little hair or something. Like she has some little eyebrow pieces here that you can see. Any tiny little spots that you want to get rid of. And there's a couple of tools that you can use for that. My favorite, or my used to be favorite one, has been the patch tool. And the patch tool is a nice one to use because you can just circle the little spot that you want to remove. I'll zoom in real close so you can see it. Circle the spot that you want to remove, and then you just drag and drop it to an area that has a better skin texture. And when you release the stylus, it automatically fills it in. So we use the options here in default, which is patching the source, just like that. And it would be circle, drag, and drop. Circle, drag, and drop. Or if you had several little spots in one area, you could circle one, and then holding the shift key down, you could circle a couple of more spots while you hold the shift key down, just like that. And then when you release the shift key, you can drag them all to a better skin texture. And when you release the stylus, they all get filled in at the same time. Okay, so that's a little patch tool, and it's really easy to use. And your other option for doing this would be the spot healing brush. And the spot healing brush is going to be used in normal mode. And you have the choice here. We used to use it in proximity match. And this is what you would do if you have CS4. You can come through here and just present the tool right over the spot that you want to remove, just like this. Okay. And you can just tap over them, push down. Just shape dynamics means that if you push down a little bit, the brush is small, and if you push down harder, the brush is big. So that's what shape dynamics are, which means they're great for eyelashes, which we'll see in a minute, but not for general retouching. If you have CS5, however, you've got this new content-aware technology that is very good. I think it's better because the spot healing brush tends to be a little bit smooth in texture, where the content-aware technology is going to reach out a little bit farther and try harder to bring in the same textures that you see in other areas. You also have an option here to sample all layers, and when you do have this option, I always think it's a good idea to check that and then make a layer to apply the artwork to, and that way you can make as many mistakes as you want to without actually applying it to the background copy until such time as you're finished. Now, with CS5, and I'll just kind of delete this layer here right now. With CS5, you do have another really cool thing here, which I really discovered that I love for spots on the face, and that is if you take the time to circle all the little blemishes on the face, which really didn't take too long. I just didn't want to take your time here during the webinar here. It took about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So here I've just circled all of these little spots on her face here, which I thought was kind of like really a cool, fun thing to do here, just for my own entertainment. No, no, but I've circled them all, and I'm going to hide this marching ant selection by choosing Command or Control H. And on CS5, it says, do you want to hide Photoshop or the selections? I want to hide the extras. And so I still have a selection, you see. I still have one here, but it's not currently visible to me. And I can now choose some new technology in CS5, which is Edit Fill. And I could choose to fill this with that beautiful content-aware technology. And when I tap OK, you'll see every single spot on her face is going to be removed. And that definitely is worth the price of admission because it even did a decent job on the enlarged pores that I saw in the specular highlights. This one here might be a little bit smooth. You see that here? This one got a little bit too smooth. But for the most part, you know, it did a really good job on all of them, even down here on the cheek area. So that is definitely one of the cool things that CS5 has to offer you. So all those little spots came out at one time. We are going to have to remember, however, to deselect this time. All right, once that's done, you've got all the temporary things off the face. You want to begin to contour and shape the general lighting, and I like to do that with the dodging and burning tools, or a dodging and burning method. I use the dodging and burning tools because they reduce contrast in between pixels, and it allows me to get kind of a little dusting area or soft focus area over the areas that I'm dodging and burning, which are usually areas that are a little too sharp and contrasty. So I kind of get a little extra boost to the retouching by doing that. Both the dodging and burning tools will be used in the mid-tone range. The exposure will be at 5%, and that is 0.5%. Protect tones is a great option for some things, but I don't like it for skins. So you're going to want to turn that off or you'll get a little bit too much discoloration. The burn tool will also be set up to work in the mid-tone range at 5%. And here you can leave the protect tones on because it builds it up a little bit more slowly, and you avoid a little bit of the grayish blue color that you can get when you dodge and burn to excessive extents, which is something that I do. However, that being set up, we're going to use the dodging and burning tools just by using the dodge tool. And we'll choose a brush size that is slightly smaller than the area that we want to work on. And we can just lighten up this little diagonal line that's coming down from the inside corner of her eye and going across the cheek. And that's called a fatigue line. It makes people appear to be a little bit tired. And we can also work a little bit around the edges of these oily highlights here. It spreads the highlights slightly, but it makes the edges more diffuse, so it makes them look less shiny. And so we can work around the face like this. And in the places where I may come up to where I want to burn something, remember I said I do all of this in the dodge tool? The keyboard shortcut is that you can hold down the Option or Alt key while you're working and access the burn tool. Even though the dodge tool doesn't change in the vertical toolbar, now I can burn down this little light spot that's on her forehead, because while I hold this Option or Alt key down, I'm burning even though the tool says that I'm dodging. So this allows me to swap quickly between dodge and burn as I move around the face without changing my brushes and going back and reselecting the tool. So, and what a lot of the dodging and burning is going to be accomplished as you are zoomed out from the image, because as you're zoomed far away like this, you're actually really seeing the contour and shaping of the light. And the point of retouching is to bring out the best expression of the subject and contour and shape the lighting so that the lighting looks really good on the face. And a lot of people think that retouching is more about taking out wrinkles and fat and, you know, all this, but I really didn't get into this because I had something against zits and wrinkles and old age. I got in this because I really love to make people beautiful. And you do that by sculpting the lighting and bringing out the very best expression that they have to offer you. So I am going back here and forth here. I'm got the Option or Alt key down while I'm working down the side of her nose here to build the shaded side up and give it a little more sculptural quality to the light. And if I see a little lump in there someplace, then I can release the release the Option or Alt key, and I'll pick up a little smaller brush in here just to take these little bumps out of the middle. Now, if people are a little bit squeamish about using the dodging and burning tools and would prefer to have something that they do on a layer separate from this, you can make an adjustment layer, any adjustment layer that you want to. Just don't make an adjustment on it. Here's a levels one. I didn't make a levels adjustment. I just made the layer. And we'll change the blending mode from normal to screen, which is going to give me a lighter exposure of my image. And with the mask activated, you can invert that, Command or Control I, so that we've hidden that screen layer behind here. And let me just type screen here. Let's just type dodge so we see what it is. And this time we'll be using the brush tool with the white as the foreground color, working on the mask itself. And at 5% opacity, we can actually be dodging or by painting in this lighter exposure just on the little spots that we want to work on. Okay? So, and that again is just a little dodge layer here that you can build up like that, where people would say it was more non-destructive. I don't necessarily agree with that term. I definitely want to change the pixels. If they look like spots on the face, I don't want to bring them back again later, so I don't feel that I'm destroying my file. I feel like I'm editing it and changing the way the pixels look. Okay, so if you wanted to dodge, that could be your dodge layer. You could make another one of these adjustment layers. And this one you could turn to multiply blending mode, which will give you a deeper exposure, invert that mask, and then using the same process here, you can then use this to darken down spots on the face with a delicate opacity. Now in this method, where before moving between dodging and burning when I was using the tools, all I had to do really is just hold down the Option or Alt key while I was working, and I would access the burn from the dodge. In this method, you actually go down and select the dodge mask. That would bring you back up here to your dodge tool, and when you wanted to burn, then you would select the mask on the burn layer. So either way, you can dodge and burn, but at the end result, you want to have them all on the same layer, so you would be merging them together. And I'll just rename this the background copy, just for you. Okay. And we'll zoom out. So that contouring and shaping, actually, if you can see here, is really what makes the lighting look good. You can spend as much time as you want on it. For a natural look, you to spend a few minutes just to shape it up a little bit. For fashion, if you want that real smooth peaches and cream complexion, you just do more of this. Okay, just the more you do, the smoother the skin is going to be, the more contoured the lighting is going to be. Now the next step we'll do is, once we've done that, is we'll notice that the specular highlights on her forehead and cheeks still look a little bit too shiny. Not as shiny as they did, but they still look a little bit too shiny. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use another tool to try to diffuse the texture in that and diffuse the edges a little bit more and add a little bit more flesh tone to it. So we'll make a new layer with nothing on it, and we're going to go to the healing brush tool. Try the healing brush tool. And we'll get a nice big brush here, and using the Option or Alt key, we'll choose the smooth part of her skin. I'll zoom in a little closer than you normally work. When I first started doing this, I was like really zoomed in. I wanted to retouch pixel by pixel, and now the farther away the better. So we're going to choose a smooth skin right here, and then we're just going to begin coloring over with a sampled, aligned, sample all layers. Sorry, so the options there, and this little preview window here is a little bit annoying for me to work with, so I'm going to turn this overlay off. Okay, there we go. You can tell this is a new version, huh? So we're going to go over here. We're just going to begin working over this greasy highlight. Whoops, gotten too far away. Oh, aligned is not checked, sorry. There we go. The difference between aligned and not aligned is that when it's not aligned, it's going to continue to go back to the very same place that I sampled before, like from here to here, and then if I move over here, it's still going to be sampling back in that original location. Whereas if you have aligned checked, it's going to follow the source to destination. So if I move to this side of the face, it's going to be sampling the edge of her head. Okay, so that's why you use it non-aligned for this particular purpose. When you get near the eyebrow, just release the pressure a little bit. This is pressure sensitivity on this brush, just like that. And then down on the cheek, we can resample the cheek texture, and we can apply it right over here. This also is a great technique to use for wrinkles when the under eye area sometimes has a lot of little sparkly wrinkles under it, and so you have highlight, shadow, highlight, shadow, highlight, shadow, a lot of different values mixing together, because what we're going to do now is, by reducing the layer opacity and bringing it up a little bit, is we're diffusing that area a little bit, and we're making the whites not quite as white and the blacks are not quite as black, see? So the contrast is being lowered, see? And because we're using pixels on top of pixels, and you're not getting 100% of anything on there, you're getting a slight diffusion just to these specular highlight areas as well. Makes a big difference, and it still looks very natural. So we'll zoom out here so we see her face, full face, and we'll always, when you're doing adjustments, move out, reduce the value to 100% down low, to 0, and then begin to bring it up until it balances well in the face. And if it turns out that the cheek looks really good, but you wish that the forehead was done more or something like that, since you have it on this layer, there's nothing to prevent you just from circling the forehead area and then making a new layer via copy, which is Command or Control J, and this actually gives you an extra coat of this healing brush that you can then reduce the opacity and bring up, so you can actually balance these pretty well for every specular highlight on the face as needed. And then when this would be finished, of course, all this is going to be then merged down onto the background copy again. Just so I won't change the name of it right away. So that's all the polishing and contouring and shaping of the face. If there's any discolorations anywhere, you can change that with the brush tool in color blending mode. The opacity about 10%, flow 100%. And through here, you'll see a lot of natural discolorations on the skin. Like the shaded side here looks a little blue, and people would say, well, maybe that's the burning that you did there. Well, maybe, but you know, over here it's a little blue, and I didn't do any burning over there. So there's a lot of different colors on people's faces, and you can get away with a lot of things. But you know, some of the natural discolorations, like the blues under the eyes, make people look tired. But with this color, blending mode for the brush at 10% opacity, you can choose little brushes that kind of fit over the discoloration and choose warmer colors of skin and just kind of brush in a little warmer tone. I love to add these warmer tones, especially to the shaded sides of the skin. And in fact, one of the ways that you really make people's skin glow, and if you're a little bit timid, you can do this on a layer that you put in color blending mode instead of the brush. At this point, the brush can be in normal or color, it really doesn't matter. But we'll drop the opacity of the brush down to 3%, and in the swatch window, you can take a really bright red color, fairly decent sized brush here, well, maybe not that decent size, and just kind of fluff in a little bit of red right in the shaded sides of the subject's skin, and this will really give you just a beautiful glow. It's also nice to add it to the temple area and the ears, the tips of the ears, fingertips, things like this. This red is just absolutely gorgeous, and you want to put it on a layer because oftentimes you will want to use that layer mask then to clean up any overspray from around here, like that. And then you can reduce the layer opacity to 0 and then bring it back until you get just that little hint of rosiness. I love it on the skin. And then merge that down. Okay, so I'd like to show you a little bit of eye enhancement here right now. Just some simple eye enhancements, but you can use them for either natural looking eyes or you can do some fine art eyes. Are there any questions on the skin so far, Joel? Doing okay? Am I going too fast, too slow?
You are, since we have a lot of people here with lots of different level abilities, for some folks you are going fairly quickly. I have told everybody that the recorded version of the webinar will be available, but just my mic's in the wrong place, will be available tomorrow.
Okay, I can slow down a little bit.
You can slow down a little bit, and because
okay.
people are really soaking this in, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there furiously taking notes.
Well, watch the webinar again because you know all of these are simple techniques, but when you see them like all stacked up and I start throwing in options for the people that are more advanced, then sometimes the beginners will feel like they're getting blown away there. So, but
Yes.
all right, but I will slow down on this, especially for the eye enhancement because I know everyone likes to see this. And so here we go. Okay, thank you.
All right, that'd be great.
All right. All right, thanks. Okay, getting to the eye. Sorry, I'm going too fast. Sometimes I am a southerner too, you know. All right, for the eye area, the first thing that you want to do is to get a nice even base to work on. And you can retouch the whites of the eyes and parts of the eyes just as you would do the skin. You could use the dodging and burning tools and come in where she has some of these little veins showing and things like this, and you can kind of just take the edges off, and you're not trying to make it look perfect, and when you really don't want it to look perfect or it'll look like she's got marbles for eyes, so you just want to take some of the edges off here. And on the other side, same thing like this. If you have particular spots, you know, feel free to use the little patch tool here or your little content aware fill or whatever. You know, you can just come in here and just any little obvious things and just pretend like you're retouching the little spots on the face. And this is just going to give us a smooth base to apply our eye enhancement to. Then you want to kind of look at what she has in the eyes and start saying, well, I see a definite catch light here. I don't see as definite a catch light as on this eye, which is okay. The catch lights don't have to match up, but people look a little sparklier when they have a little more light in the eye. So I think I'd like to enhance that one. Notice that you see the reflector in both of the eyes as well. And that's not bad to have that either. It depends upon how much drama you want. As far as catch lights go, you can have one catch light and you get kind of a dramatic, deep look to the subject's eye. The more catch lights you have, the shallower the expression is, but the more joyful the portrait is. So really kind of choose what you want artistically. One thing that is kind of a no-no for eye enhancement is that you do not want the catch lights to come over the edge of the iris, because you want to have a nice clean roundness to it. So, but after we've done this little evening up here with the retouching, we're going to make another new layer, and I call this layer Clean Up. And this is where we're going to use little paint brushes with 10% opacity to kind of dot and dash in, fill in areas that are a little bit crooked as far as the lighting goes in the eyes. Or I could also maybe take this catch light over here and transfer it over to the other side first. So let's try that. We'll do the clone stamp tool, and that's going to be set in normal blending mode. The opacity is going to be 100%, flow is 100%, aligned is selected, and sample all layers will be selected as well. And we position the little brush right over the catch light that we want to copy, and while holding down the Option or Alt key, tap once, tap, to set that source, and then release the Option or Alt key and then center it over where you want this catch light to go, and when you press down, the catch light will be transferred over to the other side. The reason you like to have that on a layer by itself, even if you're just transferring a catch light, is that if you happen to get it in the wrong place, you can use the Move tool and the arrows on your keypad to kind of reposition this catch light in exactly the right location. And in fact, it's better if you zoom out a little bit to make sure her eyes are looking right at you, because the catch light isn't always in exactly the same place prospectively from one eye to the other. They just have to give you that glance right towards you. At this point, we'll use the brush tool at 10% opacity and 100% flow. Little small retouching brush here. And we'll use the Option or Alt key to tap the brown color that we see in the iris. And then in the color window, we want to reduce the value of it halfway between where it was in black, so we can paint with a little deeper color than what we need. And this little brush is going to be used to kind of fill in the edge of the iris here. And if you wanted to increase the saturation of this brush a little bit, we could also use it to build in some of the brown. You don't have to take this reflector out, but I thought since it was here, I'd show you how to do it, because there are instances when you definitely want to do that. Okay? So if we're taking it out on that eye, we definitely want to do the same thing on the other eye as well. Is that a better pace so far?
That's great, Jane, but I thought Southerners were slower, not faster.
They are. I don't know what happens to me. I get so excited, and it's like somebody winds me up, and I just. And I'm always afraid I won't have time to do everything.
Well, we expect you to tell us everything you know about Photoshop in the next 40 minutes.
I know. I want to. I figure if I talk just fast enough.
Yeah, the pace is good, and everybody will have the opportunity to watch the recording later.
Good. Okay, good. So there's our little cleanup, and I've just, further enhanced this. And if you look at the before and after the eye area here, just this little retouching has made quite a big difference in it, in the way the eyes look. So now we've got a good base to work on, and let's brighten. What we're gonna do when we work on the eyes is we increase the contrast, color, and detail interest. So that, which means the whites are going to get a little whiter, the blacks are going to get a little blacker, the colors will get more intense, the edges will get a little sharper, and we might throw in a couple of additional pieces. And that's the same thing that you would do if you were enhancing a doorknob or anything else. It's contrast, color, and detail. And we apply each step on its own layer so we can go back and adjust them along the way. So we'll make another new layer, and this is going to be for the whites of the eyes. And we'll be using the brush tool in normal mode, 10 or 20% opacity, it doesn't really matter. What does matter is that you want to see both of the eyes at the same time while you are doing the retouching on them. And we are going to use a brush that is bigger than what you think, because what we need to add is an intensity of white right up next to the edge of the iris and slightly towards the bottom. So we just fluff, 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 fluff. Okay, just like that. And what this does is it gives you the intensity of paint here in that little wedge area, and then it falls off in roundness that matches the roundness of the ball of the eye. We do have overspray here, but as we clean that up, we're going to be increasing the detail, sharpness of edges in those areas and using it as part of our enhancement process. So we just fluff in the little white like that. Now as we get to the smaller part of the white of the eye, we will reduce the size of the brush slightly so that we can get that same little round fall off in that little tip of light, just like that. Once the color has been applied, you want to add a layer mask to it. And then with black as the foreground color and the brush tool selected, in normal mode at 100% opacity and 100% flow, we're going to choose a small brush to give us the detail that we need to have at the edge of the iris as it goes into the white of the eye. The size of the brush is important because if the brush is too small, then the edge is too sharp, and you've kind of transcended the effectiveness of that technique. And if the brush is too big, then you don't get that soft definition and you're really not enhancing the contrast interest. So you want to choose a brush that's just the right size for this. And if you cannot see where the eye used to be, you can temporarily reduce the layer opacity so that you can come in here and just kind of erase like this the overspray from the iris and any that may have gone on the upper or lower lid lines and lashes. Just like that. And then when you're finished, you want to bring the opacity back up again to make sure you haven't missed any pieces, because it's easy to miss a little piece here and there. So that would be repeated for the other eye. Now the whites of the eyes are not white. The whites of the eyes could be yellow, they could be pink, they could be bluish, whatever, and that's why we use the white paint, because we're going to go a lot whiter than what we need to have. And then as we reduce the layer opacity, whatever the natural color is for that particular subject's white will shine through. So we'll zoom out like this, and there's some nice whites. And reduce the opacity to 0 and then bring it back until you get just the right amount. And if you're going to go into Painter or something, make it a little bit more. Okay, but for Photoshop retouching, just about like that. Now what we want to do is give her some color in her irises. And her eyes, very, very dark eyes, do not handle color really well. They look artificial. So you just kind of put a reflector in instead. But here we have enough lightness to her eyes that we can add a nice iris color for her. And we'll do that in a very photographic manner by tapping on the layer that we're retouching. That's the background copy here. And we'll duplicate it and change the blending mode from normal to screen. You could also do that adjustment layer if you want to. Then what we'll do is holding down the Option or Alt key while we tap on the layer mask icon, it will hide that behind the black mask. And then we can use the brush tool with white as the foreground color, opacity 20%, flow 100%, and we're going to paint in this lighter exposure directly opposite the catch light and around the bottom part of the eyes. Once we've added the color to the iris, we'll reverse the foreground and background colors and bring the opacity of the brush up to 100% so we can take a little smaller brush and paint the mask back in. In other words, we're clearing out the pupils to make sure that she has a nice deepness in the pupils there, and you may also want to make sure that you've got that nice deep rim around the outside edges of the iris. Zooming out, you can reduce the layer opacity to 0 and then bring it back until you get just the right amount of color in the eye. Now this technique is also kind of cool because you can use it to change what you've got there. We've got the mask activated now, but if you tap on the picture part of this layer and choose Image, Adjust, Hue Saturation, you can then change the saturation of the color. You can change the color of the eye altogether here, or how light or how dark you want your paint to be. So you have a lot of versatility in here just for keying these colors in to where you want them to go. Okay, and then always, if you do make a change, you want to zoom out, reduce that opacity to 0, and bring it back until you like it. There's nothing worse than too much retouching. Well, unless it's too much bad retouching. All right, so we've got it this far, and now we're going to make another new layer so that we can accentuate the eyelashes. And the eyelashes, in her particular case, need very little accentuation on the top here, but on the bottom we can take our brush tool here. Sorry, we're not going to use the brush tool. We're going to take our smudge tool, and our smudge tool is nested with the blur and sharpen tool. I like to use the smudge tool for eyelashes because when you smudge something, it kind of comes up into a point anyway. So I'll sample all layers here so you can kind of see it kind of comes up into a point when you smudge. So we'll be using the smudge tool in normal mode at 70% strength. Sample all layers will be checked. And we're going to change whatever comes in on this layer from normal to multiply, which means anything that I put on this layer is now going to be darker. See how much darker this is than it was before? Okay. And we'll drop down to the second set of brushes that we have here, which is our little eyelash brushes. And if you can see, let me just move up close here. If you flip like this, you see how this will come out to a little point at the end? See? That's why I like to use these shape dynamics for the eyelashes, where if I used one of these other brushes for the same thing, you would get, you know, a more definitive stroke with a blunt end. So I'm going to use this one for the eyelashes, and we're going to just accentuate the eyelashes that we see on the bottom. She doesn't really need any help on the top. And you choose a brush size that's going to be about the same width as the other eyelashes that you see. Okay, and then on the other side, I'll do the same thing. Kind of accentuate what you see that's there. Generally, you zoom out a little farther to do this, but it is easier for you to see if I'm close up. And then while we look at both of these eyelashes here, we can decide if they were too sharp. If these eyelashes were maybe like this and were a little too sharp, I would go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I would blur them a little bit. Okay, because you can blur the eyelashes, you know, as much as you need to here. Okay. In this case, I don't need to, but what I would like to do is reduce the layer opacity to 0 and bring it up until I like it, so that I can see the accentuation of the eyelashes, but I don't notice my artwork. The final step in eye enhancement would be then to make another new layer for our warm and friendly color, which is red. And we'll use the brush tool in normal mode at 100% opacity and 100% flow. And choose this bright red color that we have in our swatches and just tap a little bit in the inside and outside corners of the white of the eye. Whoa, that was 2 taps. And then we'll add a layer mask to clean up the overspray from the upper and lower lid lines and lashes. Just like that. Now, because these brushes contour opposite the way, see the brush is contoured this way for the red, but the eye is contoured this way, we can reduce the opacity of this brush to 30%, and using the edge of this brush, we can trim our paint so it goes right into the corners of the eyes like this. Okay, and then we can zoom out, and while looking at the subject in the face, we reduce the opacity of that layer to 0, and we'll look at her and we begin to bring up the opacity until we feel warmth of expression, but we don't notice the red. Like, see, when you start noticing the red, you have to go back down. And it's kind of a Zen thing. You kind of have to with this. It helps if you used to be a hippie too. But if you didn't, it's usually around 15%. And you can see right here that little bit of red to add just a little bit of warmth to her expression. So what we've done here with just some simple retouching techniques so far is we have taken our model from here to here and really brought the attention up to the eye area, given her a nice smooth skin and some delicate eye enhancements. Any questions? You want to go any further?
One question that's come up a couple times, Jane, is how you set the shape excuse me, the shape dynamics in the brush panel.
Okay, the shape dynamics. Well, these brushes were made, like I said, from this brush right here in CS5, but in CS4, it's any one of the brushes that you would see in rows 2 or 3. So if this is row 1, rows 2 or 3 in CS4, any one of those brushes you could choose to make. And then in the brush window, and I don't think it's viewing those brushes in this. No, it's not viewing them here. But what shape dynamics are is that they, just make this, there we go.
Yeah, I know the trick is you have to click on the name,
okay,
not
there
on
you
the,
go.
not on the
All right,
checkbox.
okay, that's right. So anyway, this is what the default brushes look like. So what you would do is you would bring the brush, open the brush up, and this would have a check mark for shape dynamics. And you see by turning it on and off, you remove the shape dynamics. And so once you remove the shape dynamics from the brush, then you just choose to make that a new brush preset. And so that's what I did is I started out with size 1 and I went all the way up to size 500, as you can see on all my brush presets here, from 1 all the way up to 500, and all the presets will come down here at the bottom of the window. So none of mine have any of the shape dynamics. And in order to get them, and the way to get them to the top is then by opening the preset manager. And in there you can select all the brushes that you want to move. Like say if I want to move these decorative brushes from, these are some of the brushes from Graphic Authority that I love to use for patterns and things. I can take this and just grab it and then drag it right up to where I want them to go. And in this case I drag them up all the way to the top, and I put my retouching brushes first. When that's done, if you want to save them, you can choose then to save your brushes, and I would recommend that you save them in a little goodies folder that you put on your hard drive or something like that, so that if you change versions or you want to share them with somebody or something like that, that you can do it. So that's basically how those brushes were made. And we have options here of what we want to do at this point. We can continue on with this image, and I can show you some painting with light on her, or I can open another image to show you some fun painting and with light for image balancing and decorations.
How about a new image? And one other quick question that a couple of people have asked, and that is, what do you do if you have someone that does have a lot of modeling in their skin, or maybe there's a color shift either due to lighting or just the way their skin is, to try to even that out a bit? Oh, here you go.
Something like this
answers my question. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'm just throwing everything around here. What did I throw out of there now? Oh no. Something like this. This happens to a lot of us. As we get older, we get all kinds of little cool things on the face. But a lot of this isn't bad. It's not something that you would look at to get rid of. I mean, any discolorations, we've already talked about, can be solved by using the brush tool in color blending mode at just about 10% opacity and 100% flow. So any colors that you saw on the face that you wanted to get rid of, just choose the color that you would rather see there. And you can just kind of tint it in, up at higher opacity, and you can see that. Or if I wanted to get rid of this purple under the eye, I could choose a yellow or color of skin, and I can just go over that, and it just takes it right out. I mean, it's just really fast like that. The age spots here, you would take out just like the little spot removals that we did before, and I would suggest that you do it on another layer, because the end result is that you really don't want to completely remove them. You just want to kind of go over them like this. Or if you use the lasso tool, you could select all of these and use the content to wear fill, and then you back off on your layer opacity to 0 and then bring it back just until you've modified it just a little bit. And it makes a big difference in the way the portrait looks without really taking away the subject's characteristics. Okay? So we're going to do a little painting with light then on this image here. I love painting with light. Okay, so here we've got our little bride here, and the attention right now is going right down to her forearm area here in this lower part of the image, and it's not really coming up onto her face the way we want it to. And so we're going to do this with screen and multiply blending modes. Now we did this already when we did the retouching before, so we did it in two ways, and I'll show you both ways again. We'll duplicate the background, and we change the blending mode from normal to screen, and then Option or Alt tap the layer mask icon to hide that. And then with the brush tool in normal blending mode, you can then come in here at whatever opacity you need. I'm at 40% just so you can see it quickly, and you can just paint in this lighter exposure just in the areas that you want to see it. Okay. Now the alternative method to using the duplicate layer as the screen, see this is all the pixels and it's in screen blending mode, would be just to make any adjustment layer. It doesn't even matter what it is. You just open it and say, yeah, I want one. Say I want one, and then close it, because now it's an adjustment layer with a mask, and you can change it to screen blending mode, and then Command or Control I would invert that mask, and it behaves in the same manner. You can just like paint it on, and it's the same thing as if you were using the pixels. Okay, so either way is fine, whichever way you prefer to work. Okay, I did the duplicate of this layer here for this one right now. Now to burn down, you would duplicate the background, copy again the retouching layer that has all the pixels on it, and change the blending mode from normal to multiply. And this one you also would hide behind a layer mask, and using the brush tool in normal mode, you can then come in here and just really paint down. Let's get a little bigger brush here. Up, 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 up. Okay. You just paint down the parts that we want to tone down a little bit. So, and by doing this, what we're doing is we're bringing the light interest back up into our subject's face, and that's where we want people to look. So you can really add different coats of this and keep building it up and building it up using smaller brushes. You can isolate where you put it. And this is called painting with light. And this is done for a very specific way. It's done exactly to draw the attention up to our subject's face. And you can go back and forth between these two. So if I wanted to lighten up her dress a little bit in here, I could start bringing the light up in this way. Okay. And you can really even contour and shape the lighting on the face with it. So what we have here, just in a practical sense, is you can see how we can shift the focus of the lighting by just bringing it up in the image by using a little creative selectively or targeted dodging and burning adjustments. We're listening to Jack Davis too much now. So, but this can be a lot of fun too, because what we also have to play with here is that I make hennas, and I made a whole bunch of hennas. I use them myself, and I made some for Graphic Authority that I just absolutely love. And just if I take some of these hennas, and let me just take this little medallion henna, and I can drag it over here to this picture. All right, and so I've got my little henna. Thank you. And you can just lay it. It's already pre-made, so you can put it on, use it for body paints or anything you want to do. It's just a nice transparent stain. What we're going to do here is we're just going to use this as a template. So we're going to make a new layer. I'm sorry, not this kind of layer. I'm going to make a new image adjustment layer, okay, that I'm going to change into screen blending mode like this and invert it, okay. And then opening up my little henna here, the top layer's got the sharpest paint on it, so I'm going to load that as a selection. And then I can close up my medallions, and I can turn them off. I don't need them right now, and I'm going to be on this mask here, and we'll hide the selection, Command or Control H, and with white as the foreground color, we can choose to edit, fill, and we can fill with the foreground color. And we've got here now a little henna, and you can see it right here, but it's just a screen blending mode of the image itself. So now I can take this little henna like this, and if I want two of them, I can just duplicate that layer, and I can bring my little hennas up and position them in areas of the image where I might want to add just a little bit more texture. You can even layer them on top of each other or just position them around the image wherever you want to see a little bit of additional texture. Resizing them ahead of time will allow you then to um, uh, change how the sizes are relating. See, I'm just duplicating this one to create a little border down the side like this. And you can come up with that really pretty collage look that a lot of people like to see in their images. These layer opacities can then be adjusted so that you get just the degree of subtleness that you want to see. And I love painting with light. Good?
Jane, that's wonderful, and I can tell you from all the questions coming through that everybody would like you to stay for another 4 or 5 hours and have you
I'll be back at
privately
3.
and they'd like to have you privately visit each of their studios and spend the day with them. But I know we're out of time for the day, and that was just absolutely wonderful information. A lot of people were furiously trying to take notes, and I was trying to watch you as well.
Well, I'm glad. Yes, and I did want to remind everybody, we only had a little bit of time today, but you know that Jack Davis and I are doing the tour coming up here, and I showed you just a little preview of some CS5 stuff. He's got so much to show that it just amazes me, and I think that we'll have more time to spend with everybody too, and I'd love to see everyone there.
Well, good. I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen so that I can tell people that.
All right.
So here we go. Here's my screen. All right. So Jane, that was absolutely wonderful. That was a lot of great information. And for those of you that now have carpal tunnel on your hands from trying to do all that writing or typing, we will have the recorded webinar available for you to watch. You can review at your leisure. We will send out an email about 24 hours from now that will have the link, and we will see about getting Jane's brushes to you as well. I want to again thank Jane Conner-ziser for sharing her considerable talents with us. But as she mentioned before we leave for the day, I want to let you know about Jane's upcoming nationwide tour with Jack Davis. So here it is, the 2 Shots of Photoshop tour. For just $59, you get to spend a full and intensive evening focused on making your images beautiful, motivating, and memorable. If you're lucky enough to be near one of the cities and you can attend, you'll have the opportunity to spend 4+ hours with 2 of the industry's greatest talents, and I know you will leave this seminar feeling rejuvenated and inspired. And Jane, I look forward to seeing you there myself. And here is a list of the current cities. And again, I know everybody would love to have you visit them personally, but not always possible. So if you can register for this, by all means, it will be an evening well spent. Also, we have a lot of upcoming webinars, just so everybody knows. And in fact, our next webinar is actually scheduled for tomorrow afternoon, where I'm going to cover color adjustments and getting color in line very quickly using the new Color Checker Passport from x-rite, and I'll be using both Lightroom and Photoshop. If you're interested in attending, please visit the webinar registration page under the Learning tab on x-ritephoto.com. And while there, you can also check out the schedule and register for other upcoming free webinars. Again, thank you to Jane. Thank you all for attending, and we hope to spend time with you again soon. Have a great day, everyone.